Hey, what's up? It's your boy Pedro here, being joined today on this confession session by a very special person, my friend Monica, who is out in Hong Kong right now during this coronavirus season. So I wanted to get her on here to share her story because I've been following her and I've been seeing that some of the things that are going on over there are quite different than what they are here in the States. So thank you for joining us and being willing to share your story because it seems pretty interesting. So before we get started, let us know, how long have you been there in Hong Kong?
I've been in Hong Kong. It'll be 2 years in July.
Okay. So 2 years in July. And when did you guys start really hearing about the virus situation over there?
Actually, I think the first little sprinkles of it came about in early January, but it wasn't until about January, I think it's January 23rd exactly, where they shut down Wuhan that it became real for us. So that was right before Chinese New Year, and some people were going on vacation. I wasn't going on vacation. I work with a lot of Chinese people from mainland China, and they were going to mainland China. And so they kind of keep us up on Chinese news because we get the sanitized version in English. So they have to keep us up on what's going on in like real Chinese news. So right before we left work that day, they were like, hey, they shut down the whole city. Airports are shut down. You can't go in out of, I can't say it right, Hubei, the Wuhan area. You could not go in and out of it. People were inside. And if you weren't in there, you weren't getting in. That's when we realized it was serious. I wasn't going anywhere for that holiday, so I was home chilling. A lot of my coworkers actually went on vacation. A lot of the Chinese staff went to mainland China that week. We realized it was serious, a little more serious, but we still didn't realize how bad it was even then.
Okay. Did any of them, since they've been back, have any of them contracted the virus or know anybody back home?
As far as I know, no, nobody, none of them, when they all went into China. The one of my coworkers who is actually from Wuhan province, her parents live there, she didn't go home. She didn't have plans to go home. The other ones went to places nearby, but nobody came back having contracted the virus and nobody's confessed to it. So it seems like, it wasn't as easy to get as it would seem. It depends, you taking precautions, but they all went home and came back.
Wow. So. Now, I saw something which really piqued my interest when you posted it. You guys have to wear a bracelet or kind of like a house arrest thing, right? What are they calling it out there?
Yep, they're calling it. It just says stay home safe. Actually, tomorrow is my official last day on quarantine. So today was their day to call me to tell me, I don't know, random stuff. And I was very sleepy, so I wasn't interested. First, I get a call from a guy telling me that I can cut the bracelet off and delete the app. There's also an app that goes with it because tomorrow's my last day and I'm not feeling sick. And then another hour later, another lady calls and says the same thing, but she actually wants to see a picture of me wearing the bracelet again. So it's actually me and my son. I have a 14-year-old son with us, and we both have this bracelet, and it's very big, and it reminds me of the garage door opener. It's just a little bit smaller. I could imagine wearing and sleeping in this thing for 14 days.
Right.
I'm going to tell you I have not because...
So who got those?
Hopefully the Hong Kong government doesn't see this.
Was it only experts or everybody?
Anybody who came into Hong Kong, I've been slipping it off for the past 14 days. Anybody who came in, locals, expats, if you came into Hong Kong after March, I want to say 27th, 28th, something like that, you got one. Because a couple of my coworkers, they all came back right before they got the big armbands. They got these little armbands that look like the little things you get at the amusement parks.
Okay.
And theirs just had a QR code on the side of it. And so they had to scan the QR code into their app. They had a different app and everything. So anybody that came in after March 27th, 28th got this big band. And there's a special app and it's just located in my GPS. That's why I can take this off. It's not bio. There's nothing, it's just a bio. I mean, it's just GPS. So
okay.
As long as it stays attached to the app on my phone, and my phone stays in the GPS location that I told them I would be in, there was no problem.
So what's in the app? What sort of content?
Let's see if I can show you that. It's actually, no, it's just basically a GPS locator. Let's see. Wrong app. So the front of the app just says, stay home safe. I can show you this. Oh, it won't show you. You can't see it. So this is just it. And then it has the code from the thing at the bottom of it is what's important to me. At the bottom, it says finish quarantine, which I will push that tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's just keep track. I took a picture of this when I first got it. I don't have to take a picture anymore. And it just basically tracks my GPS location. As long as the armband and my phone get the same GPS location, they're not worried. When one of them leaves the GPS location, then it sets on an alert that would have me jailed for 6 months and pay like a $600 fine. I'm not doing either one of those. So
wow.
I stayed home.
Okay. And then you mentioned something I saw online about a police visit. So
Yes. So they actually show up at your house. My coworkers came in about 2 weeks before I did. And so they were on the paper armband, and it's a couple, and they both had to use their own phones, and the wife's armband never attached. So they were in their house one day just chilling, like 2:00 in the afternoon, and bang, 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 it's the police. Check and make sure you're home. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a little different. They actually called me about 15 minutes or so and said, the police are coming to your home. Are you at home? I was like, yes, I'm home. And they just came by. They checked my local ID. They looked at my armband, checked me off on the list and said, okay, bye.
Oh, wow. So what does it look like on the streets? So like, are they kind of like the National Guards? Like, are they out there patrolling the streets?
No. It's everyday life here. The only thing that's different here in Hong Kong, this is why I say, total ban, total lockdowns in the U.S., I don't know if that's the key. I really feel like the key is this. I think this is the key. You can't see it. Can you see it? That's the key. Face mask. Because nothing has been totally locked down here. From the beginning, I left here February 16th to go to the States. That Friday night was Valentine's Day. So we had Galentine's Day. We went out to a crowded restaurant for tacos. We walked the street a little bit. We went to a bar and hung out and danced. We wore a mask in between, but still not a big deal. So when you go out here, it is a regular life. Schools closed. Most businesses are trying to honor the work from home, but it's everyday life. Everybody's outside just doing their life. The only thing that's closed now, there was a rash of breakouts a few weeks ago from bars. Like there was, I guess, some kind of bar crawl or some big thing with bars. The bars were full again. And so there was a lot of cases linked to bars. So they shut down bars. And restaurants are now enforcing 4 people per table. And the tables have to be spread out more. They can't pack the restaurants out anymore. But everything else is up and running just as normal. Stores, malls. They did close beauty salons, barbershops, gyms, and something else for 2 weeks. But all of that reopens again on Friday.
So for the restaurant, you can still go sit down and eat. Because you came back to the States. So when you came back, were we under shelter in place, or had that not kicked in?
No, I came home right before Mardi Gras. I was trying to get there from Mardi Gras, and I made it. I enjoyed Mardi Gras and went out with my cousins and hung out for a bit. And then I think New Orleans went on lockdown about March 13th. I think it was at Friday, right before, it was the weekend of St. Patrick's Day. They started going on lockdown. So I enjoyed about a month of good freedom in New Orleans before everything went to, you can't eat inside the restaurants anymore.
So you were here when it started, like when the shelter in place started.
Yes.
So what's it like leaving there, coming here when like everything was normal, and then it kind of shifted, and then leaving to go back?
And for me, it was weird. It was like, why are we doing all this? We're not doing this in Hong Kong. We're out here surviving in Hong Kong. And why are y'all shutting things down? And I feel like one of the things I think it's for me is just my non-epidemic. I'm not I don't know anything much about science, but one of my things is the biggest concern of the spread of this virus is that people are living in close societies. Like here in Hong Kong, I live in a 20-story building. Mm-hmm. There are 5 apartments on my floor. So that's 5 apartments on this floor plus 20. So it's about, take off 3 floors because the Chinese superstition. So there are roughly about 80 families living in this building using the elevator all day long. And then to get into my building, I have to come from the common gate where that's a lot of transmission points. Then I take the MTR. So that's another transmission point. So I feel like those places did need to slow down a little bit because that's where the transmissions are coming from. Where in the U.S., especially like in New Orleans, I could go from my house to my car to Walmart and never truly interact face-to-face with somebody else.
Right.
So I couldn't understand why there was a need to shut down. But then I realized that if we're not going to use masks, we need to shut down because this thing is floating through the air from people's conversations.
Right.
And being in close quarters. So I really felt like if America had paid attention from the beginning and started using masks and making sure we had masks. And it was this mask shortage because there was a huge thing here about getting masks right after it happened. Like I said, back to when Chinese New Year, we realized it was a real deal. During that week on break, I went out and bought masks. Like I went to the drugstore and the guy was like, we're not selling them tonight. We sell them all at one time so everybody can get a chance and you only get 1 box. Come back here tomorrow at 9:00. I got back to the store mall at 8:45. There was already a line and he was already selling.
Oh, wow.
He didn't tell me he was selling only one box per person. So I went to the mall by myself and stood in line. It didn't take long. I stood in line, got my mask, and I called my son to come over and go buy another box, and they were already sold out. So back then you could get a box of 50 masks for $10, 10 US dollars. Now, minimum, you'll get a box of masks for about 30 US dollars.
What?
So there's no gouging rules. There's no gouging rules here.
So a box of masks went from $10 to $30. So let me ask you this, because in Hong Kong, in Asia, period, a lot of times you see people wearing masks kind of just regularly, right? Not everybody, but a decent percentage. So when this first started, did you see an uptick in like people wearing the mask?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the mask had actually been a thing from the protest. So protesters were whipping out these black masks. I don't know, I have one somewhere in here. They were wearing these black masks to hide their face from cameras. So there had been a thing in the media, in the news, where the government prohibited wearing of masks.
Oh. Because
people were using them to hide their face during the protest. So it became a law. You can't wear a mask here. And just like in a real free democratic society, the people were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not going for that. So they started wearing masks even more because of the government's ban. Now, these masks were just face coverings. They weren't surgical masks. Some of them were, creative and beautiful, but they were wearing masks just for that. So when this came about the virus, it was like, so we need to cover our face, but there's a prohibition on wearing masks. So where do we go? Where do we stand here? But it became very obvious quickly that we had to wear masks. Now, people in Hong Kong have been wearing masks whenever they feel sick, because after SARS, which was about 2003, they realized that's what was the biggest saving grace was masks. So anytime anyone here feels like the slightest cold or flu, they wear a mask to protect the public.
Okay.
So that's why you would see people just walking around with masks. And then in mainland China, they deal a lot with pollution. So people there wear masks to keep the pollution out of their nostrils. So you have a mixture of that. But yes, since this is 100% mask society, if anybody around here is walking around without a mask, they're getting a serious side eye, and nobody can understand who you are and why you're out here in these streets.
Right.
And a lot of expats in the beginning were not wearing them. And so, but I think now it's 100%. I haven't been outside in 13 days, so I don't know who's wearing what out there. I'll find out on Thursday.
So how are you eating since you haven't been out?
The grocery delivery system here is very good. I've always used the grocery delivery before. I would usually do once a week. I could order Friday and get it Saturday, order Saturday, get it Sunday. Initially with the shutdowns and with the mass scares or whatever people were doing, they shut it down. Like, it was absolutely hard to get grocery delivery, but it's kind of leveled out a little bit now. I had to order my groceries actually when I was in the States. I ordered my groceries from there so they could be delivered the Saturday after I got home, and I got home on a Thursday. But I had some food in the refrigerator, thank God. So I've ordered groceries a couple times since I've been here. I do have coworkers who live in my building and in building complex nearby. And so they've been bringing me treats, not so much groceries. So I've get groceries pretty regularly without a problem.
So what about gloves? Because I hear in the U.S., people everybody running around with gloves.
I'm not doing gloves. Gloves, I think, just in general, I think gloves are contaminated. Like they say, you're using gloves. Medical workers use gloves to keep from giving somebody else your germs.
Right.
I feel like the people in the States are just wearing those gloves in Walmart. I watched some chicks in Walmart. I just wanted to slap both of them, like, bam, they're just picking up chips and throwing them back on the shelf. And I'm like, you're contaminating all the chips. I don't want any chips no more. I'm leaving.
Right.
So,
they're touching their phone and I'm like, you're touching everything with these gloves. You don't wash your gloves.
People eating with and they're driving with the gloves on. I'm like, y'all have, and then there are the people who are not got smart enough about that, and that irritates me because they throw their gloves on the ground. So yeah, you don't find people wearing gloves too much here because we just wash our hands. I made sure I brought it back. The good thing about coming to the States mid-February, before everybody in the States got serious about it, was that I knew what I would need to bring back here. Like, before I left here, I couldn't find Clorox wipes or rubbing alcohol or anything like that. So when I got back to the States, that was some of the first things I purchased. I went to Walmart and got me a couple bottles of rubbing alcohol. I went to go to my little salvage store and bought me a couple packs of Clorox wipes. So I bought those things. I left some at home with my parents, and I brought some back here with me. And I'm glad I did, because I'm back and I still can't find like Clorox. And the prices on those things have gone up.
So let me ask you this. Because I know when I travel to different countries, some things are harder to find, just period.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not something they normally use. typically have wipes out there? Or is that something that you will find sparingly on a regular?
No, they have Clorox wipes. I have a big container on my desk. I kind of keep this. I am a bit of a germaphobe in general. Mm-hmm. So I have a box of Clorox wipes that I keep at work. So that one hopefully is still at work. I've been working almost 13 weeks, so I hope it's still in there. It was there the last time I stopped by the office. And I actually bought a pack in the beginning of this virus when people were, here in Hong Kong, I bought a box because I was like, it's there. Let me get it now while it's here. So I did buy one more. So Clorox wipes was easy to come by. Clorox bleach is easy to come by. So some of those things are easy to come by. Sometimes it's a different name brand. Right. But I was able to get everything I needed before the virus. After it became serious, it's a little bit harder to get the stuff you need.
Wow.
And the prices have gone up.
Now, a little while ago, you mentioned the riots. So what's going on with that right now? Like, because I was out there in November and I saw, actually, I was there when the guy fell off the parking deck and died and when the police officer shot somebody.
Mm-hmm. You were here the worst weekend.
Huh?
You were here the worst weekend, like the worst weekend to come during the riot, because sometimes we can maneuver around the riot and still go out and have a good time. Like you were here the weekend it went straight to pot. Like that was the worst weekend to be here. Sorry. Come back again.
Shut down the transit system. I was like waiting on a bus that comes every 5 minutes and we waited like 30 minutes and everybody started looking at each other like, I think we need to walk to the train station.
Y'all, you came here to the worst weekend to come. So as far as protests, like, the protest started, I think the official started like about this time last year, but it didn't really hit its peak until about June. Okay. And in June, it was actually just like protest march, 1 million people, families, kids out walking. And the purpose of the protest was that there was a law being enacted that Hong Kong would be able to extradite criminals to mainland China. And people didn't want that. It was a story, something about a guy who committed a crime in, I want to say, Hong Kong and fled to Taiwan.
Okay.
And they wanted to be able to extradite people from now on back to mainland China. So the people were against that. So that's where the protest started. And it started out like the first month or so, it was just that people out marching, and it was sanctioned by the government and it was peaceful. And over the summer, it turned violent and firebombs and police were out in riot gear to the point where when you were here, you probably noticed that the streets actually looked physically different.
Yeah.
They actually, because I couldn't figure out, like at one point in November, we had to shut down schools again because there was a week that was pretty much a climax of the protest. There was a week where they just laid siege to the colleges all over the city. And one of the colleges, it's at the border. I don't know if you've ever taken the bus across from the mainland of Hong Kong to the island. Mm-hmm. There's one big tunnel that everybody uses, all the buses, all the cars. It's the most popular one. There's a college on that thoroughfare because it's a great place to put a college.
Right. They
laid siege to that college, had to shut the whole roadway down. People couldn't get across. So they basically shut the city down because people who lived on the island couldn't get into Kowloon City. People who lived in Kowloon City couldn't get onto the island. And so it was like little fires all over the city. And so that kind of was the climax. So we shut down schools for a whole week for that. Then there became this thing about bricks, and I couldn't figure out what the brick thing was. They were going out into areas and they were setting up these brick obstacles. And I was like, where are they getting all these bricks from? They were literally digging up the brick sidewalks and then laying them out in the streets to stop cars from moving, and they couldn't get vehicles through.
So they were committed.
They were committed. They were committed. Fire bombs and all. Like, it was horrible, and the police were tear gassing. Luckily, where I live in a very quiet residential area. So I was almost in a cocoon. I had no idea what was happening at night. I could hear sometimes from my balcony, I could hear the police sirens and the cars rushing down to an area that's about a 15-minute walk from me. But in my neighborhood, there was nothing. But a lot of my coworkers lived right where it was. Luckily for them, their apartments they lived right in the midst of it where it was. Mm-hmm. But their apartments are built well enough that they didn't get any tear gas in their apartments. One of my coworkers lives right where your hotel was, and she had to move out of her apartment because she had gotten stuck away from her house one night, thankfully. And when she went back the next day, her apartment itself was filled with tear gas, and she was so worried about the smell and the tear gas in her clothing and her furniture. So she took everything out and washed it, and she never went back to her apartment again.
Oh, wow.
Except for to clear out the stuff that she could clear out.
So are they still protesting now in the midst of all this coronavirus stuff? There was
protests in the beginning, but they were like just regular protests by healthcare workers and office workers. They were protesting because they wanted government to shut down the border between China and Hong Kong so that the Chinese people would not come over and bring the virus over.
Right.
And they were worried, like, and healthcare workers are like, if you let them come over, we're going to have a pandemic and we can't handle that. So and so they did protest that, and the government did. It took them about 2 weeks or so, or 3 weeks or so when they shut down the border. So right now, even now, Chinese people who are not residents of Hong Kong are discouraged from coming. And if they do come, they go into a mandatory government quarantine.
Okay.
But generally, they're not coming over anymore. That was that protest. Then a few weeks later, because of the mandatory government quarantine, they started, and that was basically for anybody who was sick in any kind of way. The government decided they would use some apartments that were not occupied yet. They were public apartments, public housing, and they would use those apartments. And they were a little further out to the north of Hong Kong, and they didn't want that to happen. So they started firebombing those apartments. They're rioting and firebombing those buildings and setting them on fire so that the government couldn't use them as corona quarantines.
And so do they have any quarantines right now? Like the government able to? They
don't have as many right now because the borders are shut. You can only come into Hong Kong now if you are a resident of Hong Kong.
Okay.
Like I had to use my resident ID to get in. If I didn't have a resident card, I wouldn't have gotten back in. And so that's why the numbers are low. From what I read yesterday, there were only 377 people who were actively being quarantined in the hospital.
Okay. What about deaths? Have they been reporting on that? Like, what are those?
No, as far as we've been told, there's only been 4 deaths, and those were weeks ago.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
And so the population of Hong Kong is what? That's a lot of people.
It's a lot. I have no idea. It's probably over 10 million or so.
Yeah. Wow. So you guys are pretty much doing okay from a numbers perspective.
Yes.
So, as my next question is going to be like, how do you feel Hong Kong has done in regards to responding to the virus? But
I think every country, every government started out with the same first goal was we have to keep the money flowing.
Right.
And even Hong Kong fell into that. Let's keep the money. Like I said, nothing was ever shut down. They've just began the shutdowns about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's still not full shutdowns. It's like, you can go to restaurants, but only 4 people at a table. The tables have to be spread out further. The salons and things, they're just now closing, and they've only closed for 2 weeks. And right now we have not been told, oh no, we changed our mind, they're going to extend it. No, as far as I know, everything will be back open on Friday. So and some people just took their own precautions. Like I used the gym in my apartment building, and it's been closed since the end of January. They called me on a Sunday night and said, the gym's closed. We'll give you a credit for your time when we open. They haven't reopened yet.
Okay.
So some things like that, people were taking their own precautions. But then I have friends who go to public gyms, and their gyms didn't close until the government told them to shut down. But I think people here are a little bit more ready to comply with some things for cleanliness, because when they had the SARS outbreak, it was mostly in Hong Kong, and 700 people died, and I want to say 70,000 people had it or something like that. It was some awful number. So they were ready and they were prepared.
Okay.
I have a friend who she's been here since then, and she said she has a garage filled with N95 masks from SARS in 2003.
Oh, wow. So are you hearing the conversation here? So the gym that's closed, are you hearing people talking about oh, my business is going to fail because of...
Yeah. That is a problem here, because this has been going on here since the protest. The protest started this economic slide. Financial, tourists, restaurants, things like that come from mainland Chinese people, and they became afraid to come in because of the protest. One thing was, I don't want to get too much into politics, but there's a little bit of, mainland Chinese versus Hong Kong Chinese thing going here.
Right.
And, Beijing and communism and, that thing going on here. So I'm not going to get into that because that's not my business, not my monkey, not my show. Mm-hmm. But so a lot of the mainland Chinese people had stopped coming last fall. And you've been to Hong Kong years ago, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice the difference in the crowd when you went this time and last time?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
That some of the businesses had already been affected.
Mm-hmm. They had already been shut down because they were, probably barely making it. And when the loss and drop in mainland Chinese tourists shut down a lot of those businesses. So that was already sliding. Restaurants were shutting down. And then, so I'm sure even now it's going to be even more so. because they're just not, the people are not out there. They're not, people are not, then even though a lot of people are still here, one of the precautions that people took on their own was to stop going out. Stop going to restaurants, stop going to bars, which for me and my crew, it was like, yes, we finally have the bars to ourselves. We don't have to wait an hour and a half for a table. So we were going out more because we could get into places we've been trying to get into, because normally there's lines for everything.
Right.
But the downside to that is, yeah, we can get in, but that's because they don't have any business and it may not be here next time.
They've been talking about social distancing and things like that. Was that something that they even discussed out there? Because it's kind of hard out there, first of all, because everything is so tight.
Everybody's so tight and everybody's so close. They use the term now. That's one of those, America coins everything. So America came up with the term social distancing. So people are using the term, but in general, I don't think it's like a thing. They are, like I said, they are doing it in restaurants. The restaurants are doing the 6 feet in the restaurants from one person to the next. Try to keep your distance from people if you're taking the MTR. One of the things that's happening now, and this Friday, they have to take all the high school kids have to take an entrance exam for college. I think it's all high school seniors. And so we haven't been in school, but I guess they've, diligent students have still been studying. Some schools are doing online, like I'm teaching online every day, like a regular schedule, bam, bam, bam. They have to take a test. And so they're putting all these provisions in to ensure the kids can get in virus-free and get out. Like they're distancing the desk and they're taking over, I'm assuming they're taking over whole schools that, they were using, the kids are only going to be so many in a room. They are getting masks and there's protective gear and all this. So they are taking extra precautions to make sure that they're not transmitting. But in general, I think people are still just out wearing masks and living their best life. Most people I know are working from home. As far as I know, I only have one friend who has to go into work. And I think her company has finally gotten to the point where they figured out how, she works for an American company. They figured out how she could work from home.
So what's the situation with schools out there? So like here, a lot of them are like, all right, we're shut down for the rest of the year, going to stay at home. Is that the case out there? Have they already declared the rest of the year is going to be at home, or are they still feeling it out?
No, they're still filling it out. And originally, our dates have been getting pushed back. That's why when I came home, I was coming home. At first, we were only out for 2 weeks. Then it was, okay, let's make it a month. Okay, scratch that. We're not going to go back until after Easter break, which was Monday. And then a couple weeks before Easter break, they were like, a couple days before Easter break, they're like, nope, that's not going to happen either. So right now, we don't know when we're going back. There's some like stories out there and guidelines on when schools will start up. Right now, we're hearing that there's a 28-day virus-free protocol. If that's fine, we can start back in school. But actually, we have no dates. They are planning to open schools again before the term is over. For our school, I get out mid-June, regardless, because we've been teaching online, so school will end mid-June. But the public schools here don't end until almost late July. So even if they go back in June, they'll still have, yes.
When do they start?
They start September. So okay. They get about 6 weeks off. So mid-September, they start back. So they try, I think they're different from us, which we should be doing in the States, is they try to ride their monsoon season out, their hurricane season out before school starts.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So you mentioned coming back here to the States and then going back to Hong Kong. So what was the flight like coming and going? And then did you notice any difference in the protocol as far as customs and immigration, just going through the airport on either side, either coming this way or going back? So like, what was that experience like?
Coming back to the States from Hong Kong was actually like easy as pie. The only problem we had in the beginning was the major airlines from the U.S. airliners that would usually bring us from Hong Kong to a place in the U.S., they all stopped flying out of Hong Kong. I want to say like the first week in February.
Okay.
So then the question became, that's kind of one of the reasons I went home, because I'm like, if the airlines are not flying from here, I don't want to get stuck here. I have 2 parents in their 70s. I don't want to be stuck in Hong Kong while I have sick families. I have my grandkids and my sister and my kids. I don't want to be stuck in Hong Kong if, the world catches on fire.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I went home. And like I said, major airlines, American Airlines, United, stopped flying directly from Hong Kong. So, but the flight prices were still the normal prices. So I was able to get a flight with United, but I had to fly from Hong Kong to Japan to Dallas to New Orleans. Never had to do that before. I usually fly from Hong Kong to Dallas. No, it was Houston this time, sorry. Hong Kong to Dallas and Dallas to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, Well, I don't think anybody did anything special in Hong Kong when I left here. I know when I got to Japan.
It was still good when you left, right?
Yeah, it was still pretty decent. I think when I got to Japan, Hong Kong may have taken my temperature with a little scanner. Mm-hmm. And they asked me, had I been sick, blah, blah, blah. Had I been to China? And I got the same thing again in Japan. They asked me the same questions. Had I been sick? Had I been to China? They scanned my temperature, got my flight. Now, when I got to the States, I was sure, like this flight came directly from Japan where they were having a bit of an issue.
Right.
To Houston. And I thought, okay, now this is where shit's gonna hit the fan. And, people are gonna ask me questions and there's gonna be nothing. Nobody questioned anything. Nobody took my temperature. Nobody cared. It was just like, hey, welcome back. I told the guy, because you do the automatic passport scanner. So I did all that, got my slip. So I handed it to the guy and he was like, oh, coming from Hong Kong. And I was like, yeah, what you gonna do with it? He was like, oh, okay, nice trip. Wow. So, and I think that was the first mistake America made was they were letting flights full of people, American, Chinese American, who had been in China and who had been in Hong Kong, fly into America unchecked.
Right. And they're still doing it, I believe.
Yeah. And probably still, I'm sure they are, because that's the thing, that they were letting people fly in unchecked. Nobody was checking. Nobody was caring. It was like a lot of, and this was early February, and this thing had already kicked off really big in China already at 3 weeks. Of like, this is a problem.
Right.
And nobody questioned or checked anything when I got into the U.S. So if I had been positive, I could have been a carrier or a spreader. Nobody would have known. Nobody cared.
Right. And so what about when you were going back?
Going back was more of a problem from the point of view, now airlines are really shutting down their flights.
Right.
To Hong Kong and to Asia in general. At first I booked a flight and it was going to be perfect. Everything would be straight. I would be at home. I was going to fly again that same route. New Orleans, Chicago, Japan, Hong Kong. First flight was canceled a couple days out. They called me, hey, we can't get you from Japan to Hong Kong on the day you want to go, but we can do it a couple days later. I was like, fine, I'll take that flight. I get to the airport for my flight and they're like, for some reason, the computer won't let us put you on the flight. So they make a couple phone calls and they're like, oh, because your flight from Japan to Hong Kong is canceled again. Nobody told me anything. I'm standing in the airport with ready to turn in my rental car and my luggage. And they're like, oh, but we can't get you on the flight unless you're willing to fly today, which was a Tuesday, would arrive in Japan on Wednesday. And then Friday, I would fly out of Japan to Hong Kong. So I had to sit in the airport in Japan for 2 days because Japan has a serious quarantine lockdown themselves.
Really?
That wasn't an option in my world. So I was like, nah, I can't do that. So, I'm standing in the airport now. I got all my luggage and I got my son and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get back because I have to finish my quarantine so that I can be ready to work. I need to get back to Hong Kong.
Right.
So we made a deal. I bought with them. I rescheduled myself for the next day. So I would fly on Wednesday, arrive on Thursday, and still only get on that Friday morning flight to Hong Kong because the airline that was flying me to Hong Kong only flies 3 days a week from Japan to Hong Kong.
Okay.
So I think it was a Sunday morning, maybe a Tuesday morning. Oh, no, Sunday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday morning. And so the only one I could get on at that point would have been the Friday morning. Well, I was like, okay, fine, book me on that flight. I'll make it work. I've never slept in an airport before. I don't know if I'm down for adventures. And then I'm afraid to, like on a regular sleeping in the airport, maybe I could try it, but there's too many chances of infection for that. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not comfortable with that just sleeping in the airport. So I actually sat in the airport at that moment and I booked myself another flight with Cathay Pacific and they were able to fly me directly from Los Angeles to Hong Kong.
Okay.
That was like, I was there like 9 o'clock in the morning in New Orleans. That flight didn't leave until 11:30 that night, the same night from LA. So I had to get myself from New Orleans to LA. And I ended up doing it with Spirit Airlines. Shout out to Spirit, $28. Got me from New Orleans. $28. They got me from New Orleans to LA. And I was able to catch that flight from LAX to Hong Kong, 15 hours. It was good. It was easy. The flight was pretty full. Yeah, because they're only running 3 flights a day. 3 flights a week, or 3 flights a week. So everybody's cutting back. And so the flight was pretty full. I was able to get, my son and I both had a 3-seater to ourselves. So we lay down and he hates wearing the mask. So he was able to lay down and pull a blanket over his head and we sanitized everything. We sanitized everything for life. And we made it. And weirdly enough, no one on our flight tested positive because Hong Kong has a website that tells you where people test positive and where they were coming from. And no one on our flight tested positive.
Wow. So they're serious with this data.
Oh, they're serious. Like they tell you who tested positive, what they flew on, or where they live. And if it's a person who lives here, they'll show. I guess they go to the person's GPS and tell you every place they went to while they were from their first symptom to the time they wound up in hospital.
So are they giving like first and last name?
No, they're not giving any names. They're telling you age, gender. They're not even telling you ethnicity. They're just telling you age and gender, and they'll tell you if they're linked to somebody else who has the virus.
Okay, so like a 25-year-old male into these places.
Yeah, and it's an open website. When you finish, I'll send it to you. It's an open website. It gives all kinds of information.
And this is information I'm guessing they're collecting at the hospital once the person has come in.
Yep.
Interesting. I really don't think we have anything like that.
We wouldn't even try. We don't have the capabilities. Our people would be like I say. That the thing is, like if you are here, so like I was a regular local who had gotten the virus, and if I said, okay, I started feeling sick on Monday, I think they will go through your phone, pull up your GPS, because you know how Apple keeps track of your locations. Right. They say they don't, but they do. Right. And so I'm assuming they go through your phone and they're like, oh, okay, so you went to Marketplace, which is a grocery store, you went to the mall, when you were in this location, what was this? Oh, this is the nail salon, so you went to the nail salon, and they write all that down and put it on their website so that basically anybody who, now I don't think they might put the date you were there also. So, yeah. Wow.
That sounds actually, some things that I guess seem a little bit intrusive can also be very helpful. So there's always that fine line between what to share, what not to share. Because like you said, if I know 5 people went to this particular bar or to this particular nail salon, I might not want to go there. Or I might just be extra careful when I go because I'm like, hey.
And that's exactly what happened with the bar situation. Like there was one night, I guess, somebody was in a bar that had the virus, and the bars here are very full, and they're full of young kids. So they're full and they're sweaty and they're hot and they're breathing and they're dancing and they're having a good time. So there was a bar situation where a bunch of people had their one place in common was the bar. That's what I did, shutting bars down. But that was good to know that I went to this bar, I went to XYZ bar, and the 5 people that were at XYZ bar have the virus. Let me go get myself checked out.
So with that, can you just go get yourself checked out? Because here they're like shorter the test, and unless you're showing symptoms, you can't get tested. I guess unless you're a celebrity.
Yeah, and that's what bothers me about, we're supposed to be the world power, the leaders of society. In Hong Kong, I did what they call a sputum test. Basically, I spit in a cup. That was my whole test, And so America's talking about sticking swabs up to your brain to see if you have the virus. What's in the UAE is doing what they call an antibodies test, and they're just checking to see if you had the virus or if you are immune to the virus in 15 minutes before you get on the flight. So they're not telling you that the person on the flight does not have the virus. They're just trying to see who's had the virus, kind of. I don't know how that works out for them, but they're doing that in 15 minutes. The test here comes back in 1 day, actually hours, less than in 6 hours. I think if you take the test here and they figure out they try to get it as fast as possible, because had I tested positive after they let me go, they weren't going to call me and tell me I was positive. They were going to come to my house and be like, you better grab some shoes, you got to go.
Wow. And then take you to one of those locations that they had.
They were doing the locations, but I think they're doing hospitals now because there's so few people. Now they're taking everybody to hospitals.
I don't think we have anything like that set up.
No, not at all. I mean, we're too busy trying to get back to our normal life and make the money for Bezos that we are not thinking about how can we actually take care of the people. And like I said, my biggest fear is my parents. My father, I hope y'all watch this. He has every one of those diseases they say you have that will take you out. And so I'm like, stay home, man, stay home.
Right.
Like I made my whole point of being there at the end was I made sure he had, because he's not cooking anymore. So I made sure he had food to eat, gave him some cleaning supplies and things to keep himself occupied. His favorite places are closed. So just stay home, man, stay home. My mother can't get my mother to stay home no matter what, call her every day. She's not staying home. She's a little bit healthier and a little bit more mobile, but still stay home, lady.
So your dad's been staying put?
Not really. He goes to the grocery store every day just because, just to get out and see people. Because he lives alone, so he doesn't have anybody else to talk to. He, sit on the phone and watch news. But
yeah, I think that's another part. A lot of people are really discounting, like the human interaction part. Like, I think they feel some people are just living dangerously, and I guess depending on how you view it, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But we were made for social interaction, so. Yeah. and even this is not quite the same.
No.
It's sharing energy with someone. Even if you don't physically touch them, when you're in the same space, energy does transfer, and it's just a whole different feeling. So hopefully he'll stay put. Tell him just to drive around.
Go home, man.
Go through the drive-through, all right, see ya.
Stay home. But he's fine for now. And so hopefully he just stays that way. But it's been an interesting journey doing this whole thing, but I feel like I'm safer here. I kind of wish I could get my whole family here because we could basically all be safer here.
Right. I kind of want to come there. I'm like, sounds like you guys are on top of things. I need to.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to say, who knows if the government is actually telling you the whole story.
Right.
But the story they're telling us. But even here now, I still don't think I know anyone from work or my social scene who's contracted the virus.
Oh, wow.
So I have no reason to doubt the government. It's not like, I have 3 friends who had it and that can't be true. No, so far I don't know anybody who's contracted. There was one person in my apartment building a couple weeks ago. She got the virus at the bar scene, but that was a few weeks ago. And they do tell you what the buildings people live in. So somebody who lives in my complex, in my building, actually had the virus a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I'll be staying in the house then.
But that was weeks ago, and they've stepped up their cleaning process. And some things they do here are better than what we do in the States, and some things are not as great. There's plastic coverings on the elevator buttons, so that whenever you use the elevator, you should be pushing the plastic. The plastic is supposed to be cleaned every 2 hours.
Okay.
When you come into your building, the building has the doormat is covered in a 1 to 49% bleach solution to clean your feet.
Wow. Okay.
And this had always been, though. This wasn't new for this. There's security in my building, particularly in my building. They opened the door for me, closed the door for me at the doorman. They push the elevator buttons for me, the outside elevator button. They try to push the inside elevator button, but I'm like, I'm not there. I'm not that bougie yet where you got to come open all the doors for me.
Let me find out you live in Beverly Hills in Hong Kong out there.
Yeah, kind of. It's considered a luxury building. Yeah, everything is automated around here. Like I said, I tease my friends because I go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning. I'm the only person moving at that time of morning, and it's like a tunnel of when I come down the elevator, the guy already knows I'm coming because he's watching me on the elevator camera. So he's already got the door open. He's called the other guy. He's already called the other guy to tell him that I'm coming to the gym. So by the time I walk across to the gym, this guy's already got the door open to the gym building because nobody else, it's only open if you're going at that time of morning. So he has already got the door open for me to get in the gym. So yeah, I'm kind of spoiled. So
the only place I saw doing anything like remotely similar to that was Chipotle in Las Vegas. Shout out to them. They had a guy at the door, so they had a table with hand sanitizer. So basically because you couldn't eat in there, you could only order to go, right? Had a guy standing at the door, wiping the door handles. First of all, you really never got a chance to touch it because he was opening it. He had the hand sanitizer for you there. Of course, they have the 6 feet tape, so everybody stands 6 feet apart. You place your order, had hand sanitizer by where you check out with your debit card. When you walked out, he opened the door for you again. And I'm like, I haven't seen that anywhere. I think the second closest thing might have been Target when I went to Denver. So they were wiping down the shopping cart for you. They were you go, and they were letting people in. 3 people walk out, 3 people can go in. Yeah, it's real inconsistent here.
The Target was the only place I saw that was they had the little sanitize for your convenience baskets. Walmart was we might have some sanitizer, we might not. I don't know. Y'all take your chances.
I went to Walmart yesterday. I was like, yo, y'all are just here like the Wild Wild West.
We don't care. And so I didn't think that's one of the things, even that people are wearing gloves, but they're not taking care of the sanitize. I've always been one of those people, even before this virus. I've always been a bit of a germaphobe. I think because I move around so much and we all know the airplanes are dirty. Nobody's cleaning them. When I found out that they don't clean them at all, I was like, wait, what? Yeah. Y'all don't clean this at all? But I keep myself a stash. I have a whole bunch of right here on the table. I keep a stash of these little hand wipes. I bought 10 packs since I've been back, but I've always kept those. I have them in my purse. If I go out to dinner, I'm going to whip out some hand wipes. So I keep a stash of that stuff. So me going into Walmart now, when I was in the States, I kept hand wipes. Like I said, I had my bleach wipes and I had my alcohol wipes. I don't care thank you, young lady in Target, for wiping that basket out. I'm going to wipe it again. When the police came to my apartment a couple of days ago, I Clorox wiped on the table. They wanted to see my ID card. I handed them my ID card, and they didn't have gloves on or anything. And when they gave me my ID card, could you put this in my Clorox wipe? And I can wipe it off before I put it back in my purse.
Right.
I'm extra cautious now, but I've always been very cautious. And if you hang around a 14-year-old boy who knows he has to wipe everything down before he touches it, he's a product of his mother.
How is he doing with all of this?
Actually, he's nonplussed because he is 14 and they don't believe in social interactions and face-to-face as much as we believe. Like his friends will get together every once in a while, but this virus has really made it worse for them. And then the protests made it worse because they couldn't go anywhere without worried about if a protest is going to break out.
Right.
He's lucky here in Hong Kong and that his friends, the parents have cars and they'll pick him up and drop him off. So they were able to go out a couple of places. I think the last time he and his friends went out, though, was actually October. It was his birthday. His friend's mom picked them up and took them laser tag or something way out. And she called me. She was so apologetic because wherever they went, they were behind a protest and she was worried. I was like, you got him back home. That's all that counts. So it has kind of limited there. Like there's nowhere for them to go. Movie theaters are closed. I think they've been closed they may have just closed. So they don't really go to movies though. But a lot of the kid stuff that involves a lot of close interaction, that was closed for a while. That's about all that's probably been closed. So, but they've, 14-year-old boys with laptops. And so now they play video games like they're in each other's house.
Right.
All day and all night.
Wow. Wow. Well, I want to thank you for sharing all of this. Like, it's been real eye-opening. I've been watching your posts, and I was like, my mind was just blown. And it's fascinating to me to see how people in different parts of the world are dealing with it differently because either the country is dealing with it differently or like they're dealing with it differently. And even like being an expat and a person of color, like, because I talked to somebody else who was in mainland where, they were talking about they're kicking Africans out. So it's interesting just to see how all this stuff is playing out. So before we head out, like, is there anything you want to share or anything you want people to know? Not just about the virus, but just about travel or anything, period, working abroad?
Yeah, my thing is like working abroad. I think people everywhere, this is my third international job. And people always say to me, be careful over there. And I'm like, be careful where? I'm not in America. Right. That's where all the danger is. And so like my first job was in the UAE, Dubai. Everybody loves the idea of Dubai, but everybody wants to tell you, you're going to the Middle East. I was definitely physically safer there as a Black woman, as a single woman. Not government politically, I was still safe. It's safe there anyway. But if you look at it from that point of view, hey, who knows what could happen. But that's the same thing in America. But physically safer as a person with a single mother with a 7-year-old, I was perfectly fine. Driving at night, hanging out, I didn't worry about my safety. Then I moved to Beijing for a short while. I left there because racism. But another place where I felt pretty safe as a Black woman then, this was 2015 before they got crazy these last couple of weeks. But I would walk around Beijing at night. My friends and I would go out and hang out, not really party because there was no scene for me, but we would hang out with each other. And then I'm walking home at night by myself. Never felt unsafe. Same thing here in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been really safe. It is really safe here other than the protest, but the protest doesn't affect me because we finally figured out a system, like you pay attention to where they're going to be protesting and you don't go there. The MTR shuts down at 10 o'clock. So you're behind on that last subway home at 9 o'clock. It's going to cost you a lot to take a taxi. So be careful, things like that. But physically safe, me coming home on the MTR at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm fine. It doesn't run that late, but I'm fine. So, I want people in America to get past that whole we're the safest place in the world. I did run to America thinking that I'd enjoy my little time and get back here. And I left the pan and went to the fire, So, and even coming back here, people keep telling me I'm so worried about you. We have like 1,025, 30 cases. 1,000 cases are reported in Hong Kong.
Wow.
4 deaths.
That's
nowhere in the U.S. is like that.
Yeah, that's especially for people who don't know like how densely populated Hong Kong is.
Yes,
it's an international business center. So people always.
And you talk about densely populated. Like the building I live in has 6 towers. Each tower has 17 floors, 5 apartments on every floor. And I live in a small complex. Right. It's a conveniently small complex. Across from me is what they call a public housing, and I think it's like 4,000, 5,000 apartments in the public housing complex.
I see. Those are massive. It's like
they are huge.
It's a bunch of little.
I don't know how big they are, but they're huge. And so that's right here. That's all these people. Plus, there's another complex where my friends live at. They have about 10 buildings. I don't know how many floors or how many people on each floor. So all three of these complexes are in one area, enough that they will build a mall specifically for our use. Now, there's a university across from us, but the mall is there because of all this construction right here. Now, they're building another set of buildings across the street from me now. Okay. So there's clearly about I would say 50,000 people that live right here in my vicinity on a daily basis. I don't have that in New Orleans. In New Orleans, in my neighborhood, there's probably 50,000 people in New Orleans at this point.
Right.
Okay, maybe 150,000 in New Orleans at this point. And their numbers are dramatically higher. So I'm going to this is my belief with everybody. Don't be worried. Don't be so scared of living abroad. Get a mask. Wear a mask. Make a mask. I wish I had I made one, but it's in my washing machine. Make a mask. Wear a mask. Don't worry about buying. How long have you been abroad? I've been off and on since 2012.
Okay.
So
about 8 years.
8 years, and I'm staying as long as I can. I may have to come back because the boy's going to high school, so we'll see. But I'm staying as long as I can.
Gotcha. Well, I enjoy watching your travels and seeing you move around the globe. I remember when you were in the Middle East. I remember when you were in Beijing out there, and seeing you in Hong Kong. So I watch you. I follow. I'm checking it out. I'm like learning because you always show little nuances. So when I saw the thing about the little bracelet, I said, I got to get her on here to share with the world like what's happening in Hong Kong. And it's always good to see, people who are traveling, like you said, not afraid to, because I feel safer, again, when I'm away from the U.S. than I do when I'm here. And I think until you actually go somewhere and experience it, you really don't understand it. Like, I'm more nervous and on edge here than I am over there. I'm just worried my maps might not work, hotel in time, like I'll get there, but yeah.
And that's my thing, getting lost. My biggest thing is getting lost. Like oh my God, my phone is dead and I'm lost. I don't know where to go. And that's my biggest, where in the States, I hate to be one who's down. I'm living in a city, like I lived in McDonough, Georgia. That's where we met when I bought the house in McDonough. So that's nice and quiet and safe. But living in New Orleans is like, I do pull up to the house in the car and look around. Right. Make sure I'm safe. Nobody's out here trying to get me in the middle of the night. Those kind of things, and being out and things like that. But here I don't have that. And I'm glad I'm teaching my son. He's 14, so he's moody. But at this point, he's not afraid to live anywhere. He's not unsure about people. He's not prejudiced against any race. He realized that everybody is everybody. People are people.
Right.
So if I can breed that in him, that's great. I wish I had this opportunity, or knew this opportunity was available when I had my older two kids living with me. I definitely would have done this, but this came about by the time my other son was a senior in high school. So he's trying to come live with me. We'll see when this virus is better. When his virus is better, try to get him, restart that life. And my daughter, she got a whole family, so she's set where she is.
Gotcha. Well, that'll be good. Well, Monica, I want to thank you for taking time to share your story with us today. I'll include a link actually on the video where people can find you on social media if they ever have any questions about living abroad, teaching abroad, or traveling abroad.
I'll share. There's no magic bullet, but I'll share with you what I can.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for getting my story out there.
Absolutely.
See you online later.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
For anybody watching this video, we'll include links below. Feel free to share the video. And if you're thinking about traveling to Hong Kong or anywhere else, as we always say, buy the ticket.
Hit me up.
Go.
Hit me up.
She'll look out for you. Keep you safe out there in those Hong Kong streets.
Yes.
So on that note, we're out and we will see you guys later.
Bye-bye.